Well, the Department for Education says there are no plans right now for schools to break up for Christmas early. But would you sacrifice term time for your kids in order to have Christmas? Professor Jennifer Dowd is Professor of Demography and Population Health, studying the epidemiology of COVID-19. Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you make of this argument that Carl Hennigan put yesterday, that we need to get kids out of school early in order to make sure that they don't infect Granny at Christmas?
I think it's a reasonable strategy if people really stuck to the 2-week quarantine or isolation strategy that he mentioned. That would be completely key to making this safe for visiting grandma. And I worry that that's not how people would see that. So, being in school itself might not be the biggest risk to kids. It's the mixing that they do outside of school. So if families, were very strict with that quarantine and didn't see anyone else for 2 weeks prior to Christmas, it could be a good strategy. But I think closing schools by itself without reducing all of that other social contact wouldn't be enough to make Christmas safe.
What do you mean social contact outside school? I mean, I know in my household it's very difficult to explain to teenagers why they're not allowed to mix with friends who they're spending all day at school with. Is that what you're talking about, or do you mean meeting other people?
Yeah. No, that's what I'm talking about. It's a little bit difficult to contact trace within schools and be for sure where transmission is happening. But we haven't identified a lot of specific clusters that we can pin back to transmission in schools. It seems to be what the kids are doing after school, exactly what you're saying, socializing, parties, doing sports together on the weekends. That's where there's a lot of close contact that's not as much in a controlled environment as schools can be. So I agree, it's really hard to communicate that to kids and teenagers, but that's where the greater risk of letting their guard down is.
And the idea that they would all suddenly learn discipline about these things if we ask them not to go to school for 2 weeks, what do we think they're going to be doing for 2 weeks? Sitting at home?
No, exactly. And parents will also be scrambling to know what to do with their kids. So it's a risky strategy if the end result is that we're encouraging people to get together for Christmas. That's the part I'm concerned about. I think we still need to be really careful and hunker down, unfortunately, this Christmas, so that we can really invest in having future Christmases together.
I mean, what do you make of this whole conversation that's going on around the country at the moment about Christmas from a science perspective? I mean, what has Christmas got to do with any of it?
Well, it breaks my heart to say it, but it's kind of the recipe for super spreading events. So it's, as a scientist, it makes me really nervous. It's, prolonged close contact indoors, eating, talking, laughing with people. It really is the perfect recipe for spreading the virus. And that's what makes someone like me extremely nervous. But it's also, really tragic to tell people that they shouldn't get together with their family for Christmas. Christmas traditions are sacred, but we really don't want anyone to be missing family members next year at the Christmas table. And we are quite close to a vaccine. So to me, any infection we can avoid in the near term and hospitalization and death is one that might never have to happen. So I hate to say it, but the safest thing is to do more virtual celebrations or new traditions, that are outside, Christmas bonfires or hikes.
I mean, the thing that I find really surprising often listening to this debate is listening to scientists trying to find ways that we can have Christmas. And you think, why is this, part of your discourse when actually your job is to tell us how we can get rid of this virus? I mean, do you think that that people are actually suggesting things that don't really make scientific or medical sense in order to cater for a cultural norm? And, how does that sit with science?
So. No, I think so. I think it's so deeply ingrained that we can't cancel Christmas, that people are working themselves up into some contortions to try to support the idea and give people some hope. But no, I think the science should really be about, where do we know the biggest risk of transmission is? And unfortunately, right now, family gatherings are one of the biggest places where we're seeing serious outbreaks. So I think we do have to change the narrative a bit and say it's really horrible to cancel Christmas, but we can think of other great ways to connect. And it really is, making this investment one time so that we can have everybody together in the future.
Professor Jennifer Dowd, thank you very much indeed. Do let us